All right, we're here with William Mendoza with Rockland Restoration out of Bellflower, California. I'm assuming it's warm down there.
Yes, it is. Overcast today. It's nice though.
Yeah, I'm in Tacoma and we got rain this weekend, so we've had a couple of, we're in the rainy Northwest. So I remember, okay, so I used to live in Ventura, a little north of you, right? Just south of Santa
Right.
Barbara.
Magic Mountain.
Being surprised, California gets the same amount of rain as the Pacific Northwest, if not more. It just happens 1 week at a time.
This is true.
In the Northwest, it sprinkles here and there, and like it'll rain for an hour and then be sunny the rest of the day and then cut in and cut out. And I remember the first time we had a heavy rain in Ventura, I was like, holy cow. And it just dumps in, a 3-day span or something like that.
Yeah, that's why they're never prepared for it when it dumps.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's not going to be bad. And then next thing you know, everything's flooded out.
Yeah. And then everything's built, the other big contrast, everything's built slab on grade for the most part in California. And then we got crawl spaces up here. So, so I wanted to ask, I always like asking, most of us don't set out to get into property restoration or insurance work. It's not like you're sitting there in high school and you're like, man, I want to repair houses for insurance companies. How did you get started in property restoration?
Well, basically, a long time ago, I went to school and I studied construction technology.
Oh.
And my father is a general contractor. My grandfather was a general contractor. And I thought, you know what, I guess I'm going to become a general contractor.
Yeah.
And I want to study construction technology because I want to be, want to take it to another level, and I want to learn more about the different trades to make sure that I understand what's going on, pricing, things like that. Along that road, I had a distant cousin who I came in contact with who was actually a building inspector up in San Jose, California. So he said, why don't you get into building inspection? And I said, well, I mean, I like the brain work of all of this.
Yeah.
So I studied construction technology, then I studied building inspection. I got certified as a building inspector, and I went to work for a few different municipalities as a building and plumbing inspector. I worked for the city of Huntington Beach. I worked for the city of Upland, California. And then my last municipal job was in the city of El Salvador.
Okay. That's great. So you went
yeah.
So then when did you get the bug did you go into general contracting and then into restoration, or?
All right. So here's how it happened. At the point I became a building inspector, becoming a GC sort of got put to the side.
Sure.
So I'm inspecting for maybe about 5-7 years as I'm making my rounds to these different municipalities and then ending up in El Segundo. Right before the housing market crashed, I left one of my building jobs and I went to work for a big home builder for a couple years.
Okay.
And because I wanted to learn how to run big jobs, I wanted to learn how to schedule, and I wanted to learn, just all facets of that because I was never experienced to that. So I did that. I did that right before the housing market crashed.
Yeah.
And then and I didn't think I'd go back to building inspection. So I thought that was it. I loved that job. I loved it. It was real demanding, but man, I loved it. And it was very rewarding financially, and just the friends and everything that you make there. So what ended up happening was housing market crashed. I sat at home getting my severance, still getting bonuses from the work that I had done before. So I didn't have a care. It was just kind of, winging it. What's my next step? What's my next move? And then I ran out of money.
Yeah.
So once I ran out of money, I said, hey, I need to work again. Yeah. So first thing I did was go back to building inspection.
Okay.
So when I went back to building inspection, I ended up in El Segundo, which was the last job that I had. I was a temp, and then I applied to work for the city. They hired me on to work for the actual city of El Segundo. And in El Segundo is where I met the person who introduced me to restoration work.
Okay.
So it's sort of like, if you're building a home or a building in El Segundo, everybody wants to be the building inspector's friend.
Yeah.
So this is this guy, and I'm seeing this young guy. He's got this money. He's building a house. He seems very personable. he wants to be my friend, and I always ask people, how do you make your money? What do you do? Just interested. It's just very interesting to me.
Yeah.
The different ways and things, and I've heard some weird stories. And he said, restoration, this is what I do. So he's the one who introduced me to restoration.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's I remember when I applied, I think I told you, I applied for a service master. It was a carpet cleaning ad in Ventura, California. And at that time, quote unquote, mold is gold was the era. And they were starting up a mold remediation division. And I hadn't heard, I'd grown up around construction, but never heard like, the insurance, the water, fire damage, mold, and, getting into that, that was just a whole nother world. So, so where you're at with Rockland now, this is Rockland 2.0, right?
Correct.
Okay. And
Correct.
so you had a short hiatus with Rockland 1, and then what brought you back?
So, money again.
Yeah. What is this? What is this? Where's all the money? That's as good as money, sir. Those are IOUs. Go ahead and add it up. Every cent's accounted for.
So, Rockland 1 basically started us only doing recon.
Okay.
So, the person that introduced me to this, he only did dryouts. He didn't do any reconstruction. I got my GC license so that I could start doing reconstruction on the jobs that he was drying out.
Yeah.
I never worked for another restoration company in that respect. So everything that I learned was self-taught. Okay. So he would say, okay, I think that's a good idea. You should do recon. I don't know how to deal with the insurance as far as that's concerned, but I do know they use a program called Xactimate.
He keeps reading my estimate. I can't win.
Oh yeah.
But I don't know how to use it. So what I did was one year, I took my entire tax return because I'm working at the city job, right? They're taking all this money out. And I couldn't afford to pay for the schooling and buy the program. So I bought the program.
Okay.
I bought the program. I set up every night, just going line item through line item and reading everything about it that I could.
Okay.
Yeah. Then what I did was I would go to bid jobs and I would tell them, get 2 more estimates. I'll give you another estimate after I see those, and then they're going to pay you the highest, the lowest of the 3.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of playing off of people's greed, and so to speak, just because they want to get the most they can out of it. I had no idea, what was what. So I start bidding jobs, and maybe for about 6 months, I'm bidding jobs. I'm not winning anything. I'm not getting anything. And then I finally got my first one, and I'm losing money. Yeah. And I did that like another 6 months, and then I finally started to break even, and then I started to make money.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a whole process, and my wife at the time, she was really not happy with that. Yeah, that whole scenario, what is the culmination of that and her and learning this is what ended up ending Rockland 1.0.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a lot. Yeah. I mean, well, that's interesting though. You want to learn more about construction. So you go the construction management, educational route, and then you go from the building inspector side of things, the other side. And I think that's probably the first I've heard of someone going that route, actually using low bid to their advantage. Like, I think I can use this to try to win. We do a lot of, where I'm at now, we do a lot of public bids, and it's a frustrating process, but you learn a lot. You learn where the market is, and the ups and downs and those kinds of things. So I can't, thankfully, I'm very thankful. I had somebody that showed me, but a lot of my learning with Xactimate was exactly, you look at, well, why are you writing it this way? And then somebody else writes an estimate, and you're like, oh, there's some pickups over here, or I hadn't thought about those line items. Yeah. So
if you approach them with the humility as a contractor, these adjusters, like, I really don't know
say that word again.
Humility, like it's not something that I'm often probably known for at this point in my career. But I think at that point it was very evident. I didn't know what I was doing, right? And you had nothing to fall back on but humility.
So the mitigation contractor though that you were working with, he wasn't using Xactimate?
No.
Oh wow.
Not at all.
Yeah.
I think he would get the pricing, but he would still put together his own invoices.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
pretty common nowadays too. You know, people kind of moving away from Xactimate. I guess a lot of people are trying to. So, okay. So how I came aware, I think I saw on Instagram your Rockland Firewater, you know, your branded energy drink. And so we started a conversation on Instagram. So where did that idea come from? And then I'm really interested, what was the process like from like conceptualizing, you know, having your own energy drink? Did you have input on designing the flavor and obviously the design and that kind of stuff? But what did that process entail?
So basically, I had the idea for an energy drink, not quote unquote firewater, but I
Yeah.
had an idea for an energy drink during Rockland 1.0. I have a bunch of stuff that's was on the back burner that's now coming to fruition.
Yeah.
But um, it came because my way of thinking now and has always been the person that if I had to worry about anybody taking my business, which I don't, I mean, I'm comfortable where I'm at,
Yeah.
and I know that the people that work with me will work with me, and if they don't, that's fine. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
But the person that's coming up and is going to overtake me is because they're hungrier than I am,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So, and that person is not going to have the resources. They're not going to have the money. They're going to look at doing the most they can with the least that they have, and it's just that hunger that's going to get it going. So that's the way I try to think about everything. So when the idea for Firewater came, it was basically because it was cheaper for me to do that to promote my business than it was anything else I was doing at the time. So
Really?
if I'm giving like plumbers, I'm buying hats and I'm having them embroidered with LED lights on, which plumbers love because they go into the sink and they work, or but they
Yeah.
throw it away and that's it. Yeah, I love it here, but I couldn't have imagine the impact that an energy drink can with your logo on it would have as
Yeah.
compared to me giving you a hat with my embroidered, logo on it. It's
I can't,
totally different.
yeah, I can't think of any other company, you know, other than well, like Starbucks got into, you know, uh, to some degree, but I can't think of any other company that's done that. Like, you know, and it's ingenious because I mean, like we were talking about offline, you know, you go to a job site, you know, you bring your guys some nice cold energy drinks to keep things going, especially, you know, those
Right.
late night ones where you're going to be there all night, or you bring pizzas and sodas. But how cool is it, you know, to drop off to your guys or your partners, you know, your own branded energy drink?
Well, it's kind of funny too because we talked about Rockland 1.0. Rockland 1.0 was sort of a different animal. Rockland 1.0 was, try to conform with what is quote unquote the norm,
Yeah.
how your typical restoration company acts, what they do. Rockland 2.0 is I do whatever keeps me interested and
Yeah.
makes me feel good and makes me happy to wake up every day.
Yeah.
And there are things that I have my closest people that I bounce ideas off of. And I'm one of those people that sometimes I can't sleep at night because I have just so much stuff going into my head. I got to open my phone. I got to write things down. Even just this morning, I'm talking to other people and a lot of plumber business partner friends that I now have, and I'm bouncing stuff off of them. But when I bounced off Firewater to some people, they didn't get it. They were just
Yeah.
like, I don't understand how this works for you. And I don't understand. I think it's not a good idea. Like,
Yeah.
I don't understand how this works for you. So it was even a push, even like the person that did my graphic artist, he's done graphics for me. For years, so he kind of knows where I'm at with it. I let him run with that, but he didn't even want to put the Rockland logo on it. He just wanted it to be its own thing. And I said, no, that's not what it is.
Yeah.
It's about branding. And then those people said, well, it doesn't make sense to put the Rockland logo on the energy drink because it has nothing to do with energy drinks. And I go, it has nothing to do with it, but it has everything to do with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, over the years, I've worked for businesses large and small, you know, and even recently having some conversations. And it's so crazy that people don't understand, you know, marketing, I heard early on, it might have been in Seth Godin's like Purple Cow, but like, if you're doing what everybody else is doing, that's not marketing. You know, it's just like you said, you're a salmon in the stream, right? Salmon are dying
Right.
everywhere, and it's like everybody's like, well, this is what we do, you know. And so I I can remember telling people, like, I don't think you should hand out your business cards. Like, it's useless, for the most part. So I just can, those things where if you can invest a few more dollars. I used to work at Belfour, and we used to hand out hand sanitizers, and that became
What a commodity nowadays. Yeah.
Yeah, nowadays those are gold. And then like packs of gum with our logo on and stuff like that. Just things that stand out. Everybody eats gum, so just things that stand out a little bit more. So paying a little more than just here's my business card. And the energy drink in our industry, it's so prevalent. Like to me, it's ingenious. And so how did you find somebody to make it for you? And then, is it costly? I mean, you probably don't want to talk dollars, but
yeah, it's much less expensive than you think it
really,
would be to do it. Yeah, and it to be honest with you, somebody could just Google how to make my own energy drink, and they're gonna probably find the company that I used, or at least a company that does it.
yeah,
And they pretty much just run you through the whole thing. They'll give you a design template. They offer you, a lot of them will offer you flavors, or they'll have one that you can customize, so you can sit there and then you can tell them what you'd like it to taste like, and then go from there. I sort of kind of picked something that was generic. I didn't want it to be something that was like, well, I only like it because it tastes like grape, or it tastes like this, or it tastes like an orange. So I try to pick something that was just, more all encompassing, so you couldn't just narrow it down to one thing. But it really had everything to do with, just like anything else, just pulling the trigger on it and just pushing it through. And I think even when I got that first can of it, because I got samples, I got samples first and I tried them out, and my better half, she was just like, are you really doing this? And I'm like, yeah, I think so. And she knows that I come up with all this crazy stuff, so she's on board with it. That's the cool thing about it. She doesn't hold me back. And she saw the design and she was like, man, that looks really cool. And then when that first shipment came in, I was like, it was kind of surreal, I was like, wow, this is really what it is.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Pretty interesting.
I mean, well, yeah, like I said, I don't think I've anybody else, and if it's not as expensive as people might imagine, it's that's crazy. But like, standing out, and especially in your local market, has it been pretty well received? And then, the big question, the ROI. Your whole goal, though, I mean, this is elevating your brand as a whole, right? And then, do you feel like I guess, what was your goal with it, and are you getting the return that you expected?
It's superseded my expectation.
Okay.
So I'll give you an example. I have a buddy of mine who, he started a restoration company at the same time I sort of restarted Rockland.
Yeah.
And we do things and we talk about our ideas and we bounce stuff off of each other. So when I started the process of getting the energy drink made, and then he also started the process of networking at plumbing supply houses. So he was setting up a booth, he was bringing food in, that whole same old thing. And in the time frame from, I don't know when it was, last year, maybe in about 7 months time, he said that he had spent $15,000, 15 to 20,000, just setting up these booths and giving away things. And he didn't get one job. I spent maybe 25% of that, and I'm still getting jobs.
Yeah.
If you want me to take a dump in a box and mark it guaranteed, I will. I got spare time. But for now, for your customer's sake, for your daughter's sake, you might want to think about buying a quality product from me.
Yeah. This is like a continuing return. Yeah, that's standing out. Well, I think people have this idea that you got to spend, millions and millions of dollars. I can remember a company I worked for, we used to do a tailgater, and they do this high-end event that was, several tens of thousands of dollars. And it almost became its own beast, right? Where that's what we did last year, so that's what we have to do again. And I was thinking, man, for, like you're saying, for 25% of that cost, we could do every game a tailgater, because so in Eugene, it's a much smaller market, right? So the Ducks are the pro team. And so that was, everybody goes to the games. but most people already have their tickets if they're going to go to the game. So tickets wasn't always necessarily what you needed to get, but having a cart that had, some Coors Lights and hot dogs and hamburgers, from Costco, that's what people make the rounds. And instead of having this big fancy event, we could have blown away the return on investment by just changing our approach to it. But you almost couldn't, because this is what we did last year. We got to top that. And then it was the same people in the tent every year, as opposed to getting new blood in or anything like that. So it's just interesting. It's interesting to hear that it's actually cheaper than you might expect.
Oh yeah. And it's funny. It's kind of in tune with what you're saying. It's so funny how well received it is, and a little sought after, because I get people asking for me all the time. And right now it's on a hiatus. It's sort of just there because of everything that's going on and the time we're at. But as soon as the quarantine's over, we're gonna hit it back hard again. Yep. But I never expected it to just become its own thing. It was really just to be a promotional item for Rockland. I didn't want it to have its own Instagram page. I didn't want to, start getting into all that, making, little ads for it and all that stuff. But now people want to sell it.
Yeah.
So you're going to see that. And the funny thing is, like I said, since it was a promotional item and that's all I meant it for, I don't know the energy drink game. I don't know that market. I don't know anything about it, but it doesn't, you can start off, and I figured out a marketing plan for it so that when we're back on, I know exactly what we're going to do. And a lot of it has to do with these big companies. They come in and they service Home Depot, they service, liquor stores and all this other stuff. But there's a lot of mom and pop spots that go out and they go to Costco and they go to these other restaurant supply companies and they buy Monsters. They buy all these other types of drinks, and they're not getting anything from that company. All they're doing is buying their stuff. But now and you know what? I know you're little, but I'm still gonna give it to you for wholesale. I'm gonna give you posters. I'm gonna give you stuff to put up on your counter. And you'll have 30 days. You buy 2 cases from me. If you don't sell those cases in 30 days, I'll come back and buy it all from you. You lose nothing. It's a no-brainer. So they're like, yeah, I want it.
Well, I don't think they're down in California yet. Do you know Dutch Brothers Coffee? Does that ring a bell?
Yes, I've heard of it.
So it was based up in Oregon. I think Cave Falls, Southern Oregon is where they originated, and they're expanding out. But they did that. They had these drinks, flavored Red Bulls, right? And exactly that. They were just selling so many of them that they decided to create their own. It's a Dutch. I don't remember what they call so they have the sugar-free and the sugar version, and the same kind of thing. Now, now it's a sought-after item and people go there just for that. So I guess that's the only other one that I can think of that actually made their own. But, they've got distribution because they've got however many 100, drive-throughs and those kinds of things. So, that's awesome, man. Have you tried, I don't know if you drink, have you tried it with vodka yet? Vodka firewater?
No, not yet. But I'm actually, the funny part is before all this, before everything happened with the quarantine and everything, we have some things that are going around. You're going to hear some music for it. I have a couple of people that are making a song specific for it. There's going to be a couple of videos that you're going to see for it for advertising. So we're going to raise the stick.
That's cool. Well, okay. So you got the mask too. I got to admit, I've talked to a couple companies about, it's ingenious, especially, I don't know if they're talking about the same down in California, but up here in Washington and Oregon, they're talking about as we progressively go in, that might be a requirement. I think one of our local grocery stores, Winco, is requiring that you wear a mask if you're going to go shopping. And
it's here now.
Okay, same thing. I'm thinking like if that's if we need to protect the people that are the most at risk, and the rest of us can start getting back to life, and if we got to wear masks and gloves when we go out, let's do it. So but part of the reason you're wearing the mask is you mentioned that your company does some fugitive recovery.
So not my company, so to speak, but part of my family is fugitive recovery. So half of my family are general contractors, and the other half are in the bail bondsman business and do fugitive recovery as well. So I got to dip my feet into this side and then this side.
So are you hiding like a big mullet there behind your hat?
No, not at all. Not at all. No. I had to take it off when I watched Tiger King.
I am not cutting my hair. I'm not changing the way I dress. I refuse to wear a suit. I've had some kinky sex. I have tried drugs. I am broke as shit. I have a judgment against me from some bitch down there in Florida.
Oh man, yeah. Are you guys got the contract for Carol Baskins?
No.
So you got the masks as well, and the thing that it seems to me, the theme, which is again ingenious, is it seems like a lot of your marketing, whether intentionally or not, is really take care of your partners, right? I think you're
Yes.
water.
Correct.
You weren't intentionally going after plumbers. I was actually part of your business was not go the traditional model, but it's become that. And then the mass too, serving the essential people that are out there. Is that part of your thought? Like, let's, what can we do? Because both your products do good, right? I mean, they're things that help people that are in the trenches.
Yes. So basically, like, I want people to think about us whenever they're working, period. We're involved in some facet of it. Even when I gave away other promotional items, it was always something to help them, like the hat with the LED lights on it, or, whatever it might be, or I always gave away booties or, shoe covers, things like that. The masks actually came because the Rockland face shields, that was always going to be a promo item just to give away. That was always it. But we also started giving away masks. I think I spent like $3,000 on masks, and I was gonna sell them.
Yeah.
It's something that I was gonna do with Mrs. Rockland. Yeah. And help her generate her little income and stuff. But it ended up becoming where I wanted to just give them away. I mean, when I saw that people didn't have them and they weren't as easily accessible, I didn't think, oh, let me jack up the price and sell them for more. I thought, you know what, they just need to have it, period.
Yep.
So it just sort of falls in line. Sometimes an idea is one thing, but that's, where my head is at and the way I think about things, everything just sort of works itself out. And then it ends up this way. So I get a lot of good feedback from it. A lot of very appreciative people. I give them to plumbers. I give them to anybody who asks me, but I give them to plumbers. I always ask, how about your wife and your kids? Make sure you guys got a mask, just things like that.
Yeah, it's crazy. Whether you work at a big company or a small company, people thinking about dollars and how does it make sense. And what I'm hearing you say is it doesn't always necessarily have to make sense if it's a good and innovative idea, and it does something good. That'll come back around, right? You're living proof that, you do something good and you'll figure it out. What you said too, when you started Rockland 1.0, you're like, I'm going to do this. And you can find ways to eventually become profitable, right? But you just got to get over that fear of trying. That's awesome, man. So do you have any thoughts about where we're at with COVID-19 and how you're preparing your guys and those kinds of things?
Well, a lot of my workforce is down. They wanted to stay home with their kids, things like that. So I'm running a skeleton crew right now. So much in fact that I have to be out a lot of the time, which is fine. And I'm not pushing any of them, to do anything, or I want them to feel comfortable because like I said, it's all, if I took care of everybody else and not care of them, then what person would that make me? Just be putting a front up. I'm not a two-faced person. So that, and, originally when this all come out and I start seeing all these restoration companies, a lot of them, not all of them, we have some great ones like First to Respond. They're awesome. I watch their stuff and we share the same sentiment, I think, in the way we look at it. But there's a lot of fear mongering going on, and I'm seeing a bunch of, COVID-19 will kill exactly. It's just all about the money. And the first thing that I did was I started researching the chemicals. I'm like, does this kill COVID-19? No. So what they were doing was, it says that it kills coronaviruses, and we know that there's more than one coronavirus, but nothing that's specifically tested yet to kill COVID-19.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like either I'm going to lie or I'm going to provide just enough information to make you feel comfortable that you're making the right choice and you're protected, which in my opinion is still a lie.
Yeah.
Because you're misleading the consumer.
Yeah.
Now things are starting to change, and you're seeing people's advertising change. Now you're seeing more of the disinfecting, and it could have been that from the beginning, hospital grade disinfection, things like that. But it was pretty crazy. Also, I thought was interesting. I'm seeing a lot of companies, and I understand this because I would probably come about things the same way. There's going to probably be a lot of litigation and things involved with disinfecting things. So I'm seeing people or companies set up other companies just disinfecting.
Yeah.
So limited liability. Yeah.
Well, I guess I see two parts of it. I see companies that haven't traditionally been doing cleaning. And one video in particular, it's like, hey, we do cleaning now. And they're showing a picture of a guy not wearing his PPE properly and just scrubbing a wall like this and then just like cringing, it says, oh, okay, wow, we're really protected. We're not thinking about how we clean or going about it. But the other side of that, I've got several friends in the industry where their clients are calling them saying our company is mandating, that our office be cleaned or our space be cleaned. And, for me, that would be a tricky thing as far as like, okay, if you have to have this done, I'd rather our team service you, than somebody else, like you're saying, that's going to be a snake oil salesman. And so as long as you're honest with the value proposition and saying, hey, look, this is what we know, this is what we don't know. And I think, we've mentioned before, Ed Cross, the restoration lawyer, has a lot of good input. And episode 6, I interviewed a guy that does coverage, complex coverage, Raymond Titman, and he was saying almost exactly the same thing, is just be transparent about the value that you're offering. So
the advice I would have there is I think you number one should make a fair record, or they should make a fair record that there is contamination. If we as insurance companies start getting bills and are asked to pay them and there's no real evidence of contamination that was cleaned up, then we feel like we're being scammed.
Sure.
So if there's a legitimate request and you can show, okay, here we've taken various tests or through other means, we can verify that there's a situation here, a legitimate situation that we're trying to resolve. I think you'll by and large, you'll find insurance companies want to cooperate. They know it's a crisis for everyone. They want to do what's fair. They just don't like being taken advantage of. So if there's a documented showing that there was actual exposure in the property in question, you've got, for example, a confirmed case of coronavirus by somebody who was living there or a patron or an owner or whatnot. And there's real reason to think that there's contamination, and B, that you think you're actually doing something to solve it.
Sure.
As opposed to we're just going door to door, supposedly cleaning up properties and sending you bills.
Yeah.
I think you want to make that showing. And if it's a legitimate showing, I think you'll find more often than not that the carriers will cooperate.
And if it is perceived value, just make sure that's documented. Like, hey, we told you this is what we can and cannot guarantee, but this is what we're doing,
One of the things that I saw that I really liked from one company that was different, was a company out here called Magnolia Environmental.
Okay.
And they were actually offering assessments of your business activities, and they were actually putting it together with their hygienists, and then they're having a physician look at everything, and they're going over your work practices in the office, in the field, wherever it may be, and then they give you an SOP. So that way it tells you during these type of times, this is how you should be conducting business to make sure that you're as safe as possible.
Yeah.
And I thought, now see, that's value, because during flu season, during this type of season, since it seems like they're saying we're going to have this every year now, it's going to come around. So during these times, something like that to me would be invaluable. And that's real value, something that can keep on moving, with you and growing with you. As far as we're concerned, we're not doing any cleanup. We're not doing anything like that right now. But
specific COVID.
We are starting training, getting more information. We're going to take what we see from this, and we'll probably, if this is something that happens next season, we will. And we'll just be very forthcoming with what we are providing, and hopefully the technology and things that we'll have by that time that we'll be able to say, yes, we can eliminate the coronavirus by doing this, and this.
Yeah. Well, that's what, a lot of the professionals are saying, it's not that different, or if not easier to kill than prior, say SARS or MERS and stuff like that. But the problem is, or norovirus, the problem is those ones we have protocols, we know how to test for it, and you can do a pre and a post. And then if the worst case happened where one of your guys or crew members, guys and gals, were affected, then there's vaccines and those kinds of things too, so it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see how it all rolls out. Well, I don't want to take too much more of your time. I know you guys said you had a busy weekend with losses. Any other closing comments or thoughts?
No, sir. A few things that I do. If you'll notice, I'm changing the way our Instagram's kind of different in the sense that it's not all business. It's sort of like a work and play type of thing. Not too playful, but a couple of things that I'm starting to institute is, one, if I'm showing an equipment setup, I'm going to start putting the Exactimate codes.
Oh.
And this is just to help other people so they can get an idea of what it is. And I sort of try to think of things like, if it's me, young me who's looking at this, what would be helpful? So that's going to be one thing. You might start seeing some live stuff, might be kind of foolish, in the beginning, but just kind of what we're doing, because a lot of people say, well, what are these guys up to? So you're going to see that. Also, I like to ask questions to my peers that I may or may not know the answers to, because I know other people are wanting to know that same answer. For example, I just had one with Allstate, and something that I had gone through, and I love to put it out there. I'm that kid in the class that might know the answer, but I'm gonna ask that question because I think other people need to know that answer.
Yeah. How many times you go to those classes and it's people, the bravado of, I know this. I'm working with.
Oh God, all the time.
I'm working with a construction company here locally, and they're helping them learn Exactimate, and they're asking about taking the classes, and I'm like, man, I think I can help you learn that quicker and faster, because most of the Exactimate classes I go to, it's people bragging about their spiral staircases or sketching a complex roof, and I was like, man, I've seen one spiral staircase in like 18 years. And complex roofs, if it's that complex, I'm going to get a bid from a roofing contractor. I don't want to touch them. I'm going up there to sketch those steeples, so, the practicality of that and what's beautiful, I think, I don't want to, I think the prior generation set that up, the ASCR becoming RIA and IICRC, we're an industry of independence, but there's a lot of good collaboration that happens. There's a lot of people that want to pick you apart if you post something. There's a lot of good people that'll be like, yeah, hey, this is what I know, or, and it may be more private messages, but I think that's good, man.
When I get a DM from somebody and they tell me that they watch us and what we do, that's awesome. I love it. And I always offer my help. I send my personal cell phone number to people. I say, if you have any questions, let me know. You have any issues with billing, let me know. I'll be happy to lend you a hand or give you an ear. So, it's just, to me, that's part of like what I should be doing.
Well, and it raises the bar, right? There's plenty of work out there.
Oh yeah. I'm not worried about that. There's plenty of work. And then there's only one more thing I wanted to mention. So before Firewater, there is Rockland is going to be putting out a comic book.
What?
And the idea for that was, we're on a loss. There's children there. They want to understand what's going on. So we're going to have these comic/coloring books. And it's going to be basically a loss from start to finish. So the first one is called Rockland versus the Mold Monster.
Okay.
So, and I kind of procrastinated on this a little bit. So it took the back seat to the Firewater once that started going, but hopefully I'm going to get it out. The first one, there's going to be 3. Hopefully the first one will come out before the end of the year. And the procrastination actually really worked out, because now the story goes, the superheroes, Rockland, get their power from drinking firewater.
There you go. Okay. So that's awesome, man. That'll be fun. Okay, well, we'll have to maybe once those are ready or something, maybe we'll have to have you back on or do a little follow-up. That's awesome.
Awesome.
Very cool. Well, thank you, William. Thank you for sharing your time and your ideas. And I think, hopefully what people get from this is don't overcomplicate your marketing. Do something good and it'll pay tenfold, right? So
that's right.
Well, thank you, man. And I love seeing your stuff on Instagram and, looking forward to having many more conversations to follow.
Awesome. Appreciate you. Thank you for having us.
All right, man. So, and then I don't know if you saw, have you listened to the GMS podcast? Do you use those GMS boxes?
No. Oh, those power distribution boxes.
Yeah.
Is that what
it comes in a bag, and it's got all the tails to where you can plug into the range or where the dryer is, and you get a whole nother, I think it's each of them are separate GFCI, and you can just crank out, and you can charge for it in the Exactimate line item for the spider box.
That I didn't know.
And it's instead of having to pay an electrician to hardwire it, just bop, you're right there.
So the DYOJO, the Do Your Job Dojo.
Yeah.
Kind of tell us a little bit about that. Why you started it. What your kind of goal is there. What is the DYOJO?